Ever feel super uncomfortable in a room full of women? Absolutely, that's me. I would feel very comfortable climbing the corporate ladder, earning titles, leading executive board meetings, but you tell me to go get in a room full of women? Absolutely not. I would feel awkward. I would feel intimidated. The shame that I don't belong here would overwhelm me until I discovered my powerhouse moment, that a woman generates the power from within, from stepping outside her comfort zone. That becoming a powerhouse woman is by stepping into the power of becoming uncomfortable. As a woman who has started over twice, overcome debt, overcome layoff, I became super comfortable completely avoiding other women because of the shame, because of the shame in my story, especially my financial story, because here I was 25 years as a professional, an MBA, and all these things, but I had started over several times financially and personally. Now, while that was amazing, I was able to rebuild every single time. The shame in my story still had me captive. I was very, very afraid of what the other women may say. And so I got very comfortable avoiding other women. It's like that spot in the couch that is just worn out because you sat there so long, you become stuck. And it's really hard to get out of. For about 9 years, that's where I sat, avoiding other women. And I just became super, super busy and work and work and work and kids and work and work and kids. It was impossible to get out. But that's when I discovered my powerhouse moment. Because all of a sudden, a mentor of mine, Patrice Washington, was going to speak for the very first time since after COVID. The time before that was 2019. So in August of 2021, she was going to speak and she announced she was going to be a speaker. And I knew I had to be there. It didn't matter that it was going to be in a room full of women that absolutely terrified me. It was in a city I had never been to. I didn't know anyone that was going to be there, but I knew she was going to be there. And I knew she had a word that I needed to listen to because I had been so stuck in that comfort zone. I needed to get out. Something needed to change. I needed to feel that inner power again. So I booked a ticket to Phoenix, Arizona. I am from Oklahoma and I had never been to Phoenix. I had rarely been outside of my comfort zone here in my state. So I booked a ticket, flew to a city I had never been to, knowing that there was going to be a bunch of women there I didn't know. I packed clothes that were very bright colored because I knew in order for me to be able to walk into that room, I needed to feel uncomfortable. I needed to wear clothes that I was uncomfortable in. As a numbers nerd and professional in finance accounting, I'm very comfortable wearing dark colors, suits, slacks, heels, putting on a dress that was brightly colored. I knew it was going to force me and make me uncomfortable enough to talk to other women and relate and engage. And it was amazing because I flew in, got to the door, terrified to open the door to the Powerhouse Women's event of August of 2021, hosted by Lindsay Schwartz. I opened that door feeling absolutely terrified. But by the end of the day, yes, I got to hug Patrice. I met so many women that I realized embraced my story because they did. I was brightly colored. I would engage with them and I reached out to them and they reached out to me and I shared my story and they didn't snicker like middle school girls. Some of them said, "Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I've started over also. I've come out of debt. I've been laid off. I have a special needs child too." We all started to relate to each other, and that shame just dropped off. It just dropped off. And that's when I realized this was my powerhouse moment because I felt empowered. I felt the power of stepping outside my comfort zone. So, in this video, I also want to share with you 5 keys to unlock your power, getting you to step outside your comfort zone and for you to have your powerhouse moment. Are you ready for the first key to unlock that power within you and stepping outside your comfort zone? Turning panic into perseverance. Yes, so many of us, when life suddenly changes, we panic. I know I did. When I started over, all of a sudden I was getting a divorce, becoming a single mother, and I swore I was not going to be like my parents that divorced when I was 3. I just, are you kidding me? I'm getting pure panic set in. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What am I going to? But then I turned to 2 key things. First, strategy, strategic planning. When I booked the flight to the Powerhouse Women's event, I sat in place a strategic plan, turning my panic in a way to persevere, a way to go, okay, one step, buy the plane ticket. Okay, I did it. Next, book the ticket to the event. Okay, I did it. I'm already in. Next, pack your clothes. What are you going to wear? Next, do a strategic plan. Same thing goes with finances. Whenever all of a sudden I was starting over in pure panic, okay, I leaned back in. I was raised by a financial planner father. So I'm actually third generation because so is my grandfather was a financial advisor. I leaned back instead of panicking of financially, what am I going to do? Okay, strategic plan. This is what I'm going to do to help me move. Down payment on a house, start my bills, start my car. I went through a strategic plan. So when you want to turn your panic into perseverance, first start out with a strategic plan because helping you first take that deep breath. I love breath work. It is incredible. But taking that first deep breath starts the next deep breath and the next deep breath. And pretty soon you are persevering outside your normal comfort zone and turn what you thought was a panic moment into perseverance. Next, the biggest piece in turning panic into perseverance is support. I was absolutely panicked walking into that room full of women. There was probably 250, 300 women in that room at the Powerhouse Women's event. All those chairs absolutely panicked me. The bright colors and all the beautiful women. Again, the panic because I felt like I didn't belong there at all. But then my strategic planning and networking and reaching out for support, I started to engage. I started meeting people and exchanging a smile, exchanging Instagram handles, exchanging where are you from. And next thing you know, that panic through the power of support from women I didn't even know became how I persevered through the entire day. Because for me, that was being able to first get through an entire day in a room full of women without feeling drained, without feeling exhausted, without feeling, and I did. I persevered, turned panic into perseverance through first strategic planning and next finding that support to get me through the day. I actually found another woman from Oklahoma. She invited me to sit with her. And I cannot tell you what a difference that made. So turn your panic into perseverance. When you're stepping outside your comfort zone, finding that power from within, let's all turn our panic into perseverance. What is the next key to stepping outside your comfort zone, becoming uncomfortable to find your powerhouse moment? It is turning overwhelm into opportunity. When I was laid off in 2015, I was over 40 and I was an executive. I thought I can always find another job. This is no big deal. 4, 5 months later, I was still unemployed. I was quickly humbled. because being over 40, being a single mother of two, one was very young, the other was special needs. And it was hard. It was hard. And I started making every single excuse and becoming super overwhelmed until I started prioritizing and delegating and realizing, wait, there's an opportunity here. So, first, prioritizing my finances, because that does become super. It doesn't matter how long you've been in finance and accounting. They always say the janitor has the dirtiest closet. Well, sometimes, even though you know you can do finances for multi-million-dollar companies, when it comes to your own, and especially when times are tight, okay, what are we going to do? I'm not just going to easily find another job. What do I need to live on, to give, to grow? What do I owe? And I started really making my money plan, really started prioritizing and seeing where is the need, which then led me into next. It was till I really broke it down. Okay, where am I overwhelmed? But where is the opportunity? I started realizing, wait a second, I have a gift. I have all this experience of being in finance and accounting. There are so many companies out there that maybe can't afford me full time. They don't need a full time controller or a full time person doing their finances, but they need it every once in a while. They need someone to present at their board meetings or gather their financials or ask financial questions. It was in that overwhelm that I discovered the opportunity to create my own business. And I started going out and being a contract, like an independent contractor for companies who couldn't afford a full-time controller. And that's when I discovered the power of entrepreneurship, creating my own business from what was once the overwhelm. Once I prioritized, broke it down, I then walked into the opportunity. What was once uncomfortable for me became the opportunity because I was forced outside my comfort zone, outside the world of being a W 2 corporate employee. I became uncomfortable. But that overwhelm, I turned it into opportunity. And you can absolutely do it too. What in your life has felt so overwhelming? Just like me walking into the doors of a room full of women, that overwhelm turned into opportunity where I met my mentor, Patrice Washington. I ended up meeting Lindsay Schwartz. I ended up meeting Rachel Luna. I got to hug another mentor of mine, Tracy O'Malley. And then I met so many women I still keep in contact with to this day. The overwhelm, getting uncomfortable and walking through that door became the opportunity. So, where again in your life can you break it down, prioritize, and turn your overwhelm into your opportunity by stepping outside your comfort zone and finding the power in being uncomfortable? The next key is my favorite, turning whining into wisdom. I mean, how many of us have told our children to stop whining? Stop whining. Is whining going to fix it? No, get up. Let's take care of it. But then how many of us don't follow that advice? We always say, why me? And we sit in tears and we sit in our sorrow and our depression. We start scrolling on our phones just to avoid doing anything about it. We start whining, but let's stop whining and turn our whining into wisdom, because that is key. I know it was for me when I started my side company and helping companies that couldn't afford a full-time controller or need a full-time controller. I would go in and help them clean up their financials, look at their books, answer questions, and prepare for board meetings. And at first, I was just like, this is great. Until I had a client that I would be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. I knew I had to get up at 4. It's a morning I didn't have my children and I was a single mother. I would get up at 4 and get ready and drive the over 30 minutes to downtown Oklahoma City for when they opened at 6. And I would work there for an hour. And then I knew after that, I would go to a nonprofit, work for there for an hour, and then go to my full time job. So sometimes on my drive downtown, I would be super grumpy. I would be whining. I was like, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. I just stayed up all the way till midnight working on other financials. And now I've already got up at 4. And I would start complaining until I would drive into downtown and I would see the homeless lying on the streets, no place to sleep. That's when the power of gratitude. I discovered using the power of gratitude to turn my whining into wisdom. I am so grateful that I started this business. I'm so grateful that I found this client. I'm so grateful that I can go here and earn extra money for my children. That power of gratitude every time would turn my whining into wisdom, because from that gratitude, I started learning to be empowered. I started learning into change. I started learning to be able to take each lesson I learned over time and actually applying that wisdom from my experience. What in your past experience, what are you great at? That sometimes we whine that no one's noticing us, that we can't use it. And why me? And then, but no, I can turn this into an extra income for my family. I can share my wisdom. I can share my life story with other women that may need to hear it. The next, in turning wine into wisdom, is seeking solutions. When I discovered mentors like Patrice Washington and Lindsay Schwartz and Tracy O'Malley and Brooke Thomas, I just mentor after mentor, I really started seeking solution in these other women, because I realized each one of them had a story where they once turned their whining into wisdom. And they were sharing their stories over and over again with other women and empowering other women. They got outside of their comfort zone, got very uncomfortable, and changed their story and changed their direction. So I started seeking solutions through other mentors, through other people that had gone through it, and started seeking their wisdom and how they turned their whining into wisdom. That is so key, discovering that power from within and getting uncomfortable to discover your powerhouse moment. Next key is turning envy into empowerment. How many of us have sat there on the phone? We have scrolled through social media and look at their house, look at their clothes. Oh, they've got the perfect family. And we sat there in envy, but we sat there. We sat there in our comfort zone, unwilling to change anything, but sit there and fume at how dare they have that and I don't. Why do they have that and I don't? Because they got uncomfortable and they made changes. And it's time that we do that too and get out of our comfort zones, become uncomfortable, and turn our envy into empowerment. And one of the first ways we do that is learning from others. Those people that you were envious of, learn from them. How did they get uncomfortable? You're seeing their ending story, but where did they begin? Where did they start out? Because one of the most amazing mentors will always tell you where they started, where they began, because that's who they are today, is because of their story. And they're sharing it. They're not just showing that pretty perfect of who I am now. Most of them will share the grit with you. Patrice Washington will share the story of being on her bathroom floor where they were cutting off her electricity and she had a newborn baby. Each one of your mentors will tell you of where they started. So don't just sit there and be envious of where they are now. Learn from them. Start learning from those mentors. Next step to turn your envy into empowerment is collaborating. Find other women that maybe just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, or maybe reach out to that mentor you look up to. I want to work one-on-one with you, because sometimes even hiring someone to work one-on-one, that's a big step. That's uncomfortable. They'll never work with me. Ask, just ask, just try. Because when we start taking action and start learning to collaborate, hey, I want to be on your podcast. What do you think about this? I would love to speak. Would you like to speak on my stage? I'll speak on your stage and start collaborating. Hey, let's go live. Let's turn our envy of other people that we think may have it all put together. Let's start learning from their stories, start collaborating with them, and start turning that envy into empowerment to discover your powerhouse moment. The last key in getting uncomfortable to discover that powerhouse moment is turning resistance into resilience. For so many of us, when change happens, when all of a sudden you find yourself starting over, we're resistant to it. I'm not ready for change. I don't want to change. Sometimes life forces us. Like for me, starting over after a divorce, not once, but twice, and being in depth situations because of life events and being an executive laid off. Gosh, there's so many things. Recently, I was just married after 15 years of divorce. And 1 month after our wedding, my husband injured his spine and lost his job. And all of a sudden, I found myself rebuilding again. I was so resistant to it because I was like, I've already rebuilt. Why am I here again? But that's when learned. I learned that all of a sudden, by being thrown into that uncomfortable zone, that's where my resilience was built and created. And that's where yours can be too. Because when we start to really embrace our changes, sit back and go, okay, not whining about it, not sit there and envy other people's lives because their lives are not changing. Sit there and go, okay, what do you want me to see? What do you want me to know? And start your strategic planning, just like we talked in the key number one. Let's reach out to others. How did they do it? And start embracing your change. When that recent change happened for me just last summer, in the summer of 2022, okay, I rebuilt before, I could rebuild again. This time it's a little bit different because there's a family of 8 now, and we've got double the expenses or triple the expenses. But now, you know what? I can do this. I can create other streams of income. I can start speaking on stages. I can start podcasts. I can start offering more one-on-one. I can start a YouTube channel. There's other things. I'm going to do this because I knew from before that every time I got uncomfortable, just like that very first time of going to the event and opening the door of a room full of women that I was super uncomfortable, I left there changed. That was my powerhouse moment. So by embracing the change of when life suddenly changes, stop being resistant to it. And I know that's really hard to say, but I've been there. I've been there. Turn your resistance into the resilience that you need to also then reframe the situation that you're in. The reframe is key. Just like I had to sit there and go, okay, this is what's happening. This is what we're going to do. I started reframing my mindset. I know mindset can be a fluffy term, but when you start setting your mind on embracing the change, stop being resistant and stepping into the resilience that is waiting for you on the other side, because that's going to be your story that you're going to share with another woman. This is going to be your powerhouse moment that someday that you're going to sit there in front of a microphone and in front of a camera and tell your story of how you stopped being resistant. You stopped whining. You stopped sitting there in envy and in overwhelm and in panic. And you were resilient. And you discovered your powerhouse moment. We went over 5 keys for unlocking your powerhouse moment. And if you've been taking notes, you may have caught on to something. We spelled out the word power, turning panic into perseverance, turning overwhelm into opportunity, turning whining into wisdom, turning envy into empowerment, and turning resistance into resilience. You can unlock that power from within. As a woman, we all have them, but we've gotten so comfortable. We've gotten so comfortable. Let's all become uncomfortable. Wear your bright colors and walk into a room that is new and embrace it and discover your powerhouse moments by becoming uncomfortable.